Oh, yes. When I hold my phone, I cannot do the air drumming. It bothers me. Uh-oh. Did I just mess it up? Okay, here we go. I have to be careful when I use my phone like this because things happen, as you can see. First and foremost, all my prayers and heart go out to the people of California. That's why I have this background today. Just keep us aware that there are those less fortunate than us during this time and just send a little prayer to them. Anyhow, wow, here we are again, right? Health and Wellness Wednesdays. And today I have my good friend Daniel Johnson on. You've seen me speak with him before, and he is just. I'm so completely engaged talking to Daniel. I just love it. He makes me think from the back of my brain to the front. Not everybody can do that. So I'm so happy to
That's
have him
right.
here today. And we welcome Daniel Johnson from Portugal today. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Sorrel, if you could please read the bio of this fantastic young man.
Yeah, it's my honor to do that. Daniel's a husband, a father, entrepreneur, talented cook. You've got to invite us over, according to his wife. So we need proof. And everyone she invites over for dinner. Daniel's also a writer, a vocalist, a musician, a creative coach and consultant who values integrity, transparency, and purpose. After years of struggling to skirt labels and expectation, hide from criticism, and avoid dislike, Daniel has discovered a unique gift and purpose as an agitator. So prepared to be shaken, stirred, and poured as Daniel exercises his knack for saying the one thing that will piss you off to get you to move toward the thing which
Oh,
deep, deep in your truest self, you want most to say. Well, if you're one or you know of others who may withhold what they want to say, this is the episode for you. Daniel's passion is to ask the kind of questions that others find difficult or rude, but that he sees as necessary in order to agitate you enough to stop running from your gifts for fear of judgment and to use them to honor your purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the agitator, Mr. Daniel Johnson.
I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you. Thank you
Why do
so
I
much,
feel like we're
Sorrel.
about to watch a movie right now? That was such
That
a
was
great
awesome.
voice, you know?
That was
The lights
awesome.
go down.
It's so funny because I never read that bio. I never, you don't read your own bio. Kind of like you don't really think a whole lot about your own name sometimes. Um, Thank you for that warm introduction, Sorrel. I appreciate it. So my question today is what I want to talk to you guys about, and it is: are you using self-care to love yourself? Self-care to love yourself, or to hide that you actually don't? I'm gonna let that hang for a second. Are you using self-care to love yourself or to hide that you don't? So this is something that, having been in health and wellness for so long, you hear a lot of conversation about. And we live in a culture that preaches self-love. Um, you know, Many of us are kind of deeply unsettled and dissatisfied and disconnected from ourselves, and we sort of put self-care and self-love at the pinnacle of aspiration to overcome those things, or to sort of move past those things. But I don't think that disconnect is like strictly a lack of self-love so much as it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what love actually is, and a refusal to embrace who we're designed to be. I think that's really important. And I think one of the things I've heard so many clients, I mean, when I say so many clients, it's because I don't have like there's so many people who have said this to me, clients and beyond, of how, I really need to exercise some self-care. But what I have found is that often this self-care is a form of escapism. And it's not that it can't be used benevolently. It's not that, you know, self-care in the most, let's call it altruistic sense, in the most altruistic senses are not beneficial. It's that I think we have to be careful with this notion of self-care, because a lot of times what that involves is numbing our pain instead of sitting in it and trying to find out what it is that's causing the pain. Indulging in our whims and, being lazy, just kind of avoiding what's right in front of us, avoiding purpose. I think of, most people on this call and other calls that I've done are entrepreneurs, right? Many people are. I shouldn't say that because I don't know everyone that's here today, but I talk to a lot of people in that world, and we're always, I've certainly been guilty of this, always wanting to improve, always wanting to there's this growth mindset. You see that hashtag all over the place, growth mindset. And we think of that as this, acquire more skills, right? Get better. And, sometimes it can be getting better to be better suited to provide the service that we're already providing, to serve in the ways that we already are. But a lot of times we bury ourselves under a mound of these skills and continuing to get more and more skills, continue to acquire more and more and more so we can get better and better, better. When, the definition of love, as I see it, and think about this and tell me when we're done running through this, tell me what you think. But I think the definition of love is taking everything that you have and using it in service to another, in the service of another. And if that's what love is, then self-love would have to, on some level, involve accepting what you have to give, right? And giving from what you already have instead of waiting until you get more and then giving. A lot of times, I think this is where self-care ends up. Not that the thought of it initially, like a lot of things, we start in a good place, but we end up off the rails. I think one of the biggest forms of evidence of a lack of true self-love is that we often, in our culture, we neglect our gifts and what God has naturally gifted us to be able to do and serve from where we are as we're born into the world, into this life. We're already ready to serve. We're already ready to give, but we're constantly trying to become better than we are or have more than we have to give and love as we see this thing of love being. But when you neglect your gifts, when you neglect how you're designed, you reject who you are, So are the actions that you're taking in regard to this idea of self-care, are they moving you toward or away from who you're meant to be? Have you really examined that? Have you thought about that? Not is this making money? Or are people really vibing with this? Right? Is this really helping people? Because you can be useful and still not be honoring who you are. That's possible. And in fact, I think that it's one of the biggest deceptors or deceivers is whether or not you're profitable, you're making money, and whether or not people are approving of it, right? we look at that as the ultimate sign that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But rejecting who you are, not using your gifts, and most of us, you know, we know what they are. We just haven't stepped into them. We feel like, oh, I can't really use that to make money, or I can't really, that kind of thing. One of the things I always loved about Chase is that he has really embraced those parts of himself, but we don't do that. And it's interesting because culture doesn't really incentivize us to. And so we end up on these paths and we get these, experiences of burnout, and then we have to self-care ourselves into feeling better about what we're doing. And then we can continue doing what we're doing, which is not necessarily what we were meant to do.
If I may, sir.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we have time for today. I mean, it was so much stuff you said was so incredible. No. It's not a bad thing. It's just like, wow, there was so much to unpack in what you just said in the opening segment. Like, wow. I was thinking, or I was saying to myself that while you were talking, that most people don't have any, victories. So they've not felt what you're talking about ever, right? Meaning using their gifts to help others. So they only look at it in a linear fashion, right? Making money, having more skills, whatever. Yeah. I know what it feels like to do what I love to do and make people feel better. I've known how it felt for a long time. I love it. To me, it's like the ultimate drug of life, right? When I talk to people about it, most people say, oh, well, that's you. You can do that stuff. Or you're really good at that stuff. And they push it aside. And I go, what do you mean?
Absolutely.
Why can't you, what do you like? And I've had literally, I have, because I've talked to you about this, back and forth conversations with certain people where I say something like that to them and we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I feel like, as opposed to fighting somebody to tell them they can't do something, or you're not going to, don't leave that alone. I'm saying, yes, you can do it. And they're going, but yeah, but oh, you know how much that costs? Oh, you know how many years that's going to take? Oh, whatever. And then it kind of deflates and I move away from it. You talked about self-care. I think I might have said this to you a long time ago, but isn't it interesting? Or maybe you can give me an opinion of why you think it is, that the self-help portion of the bookstore has quadrupled over the last 5 or 6 years. It used to be a half of an aisle. I used to go to it all the time and listen to things. Pick stuff up, read stuff or whatever. It's a whole row and a half in the store now. Does that mean that people are, it's almost like what we were just saying. Does that mean that even like entrepreneurs or writers are seeing there's an opportunity to make more money? Let's write more books. Or does it mean there's more of a consciousness that people are starting to understand, hey, I can help myself. I can decide I'm going to do something, be happier, serve more, do more. I can do it. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think that it's not any of those things. Right. But what I would say is that, capitalism tends to monetize what is working, what there's a demand for. And when we talk about this idea of self-care, we have to remember that the first word in that is self. And I think that what has happened is that we've been enculturated to put self at the top of this sort of this pyramid.
Right.
And it's our God. Self is like a big, it's funny because the things that you're talking about, talking to people and them going back and forth, is the belief that a person starts with is what's going to keep them from hearing any of the other stuff that you're talking about. Like, the first thing, it sort of unravels at the beginning of it, because we have also, I think, misidentified what self is. And we use these words to describe things that don't really capture what we're saying. I personally, what I found is that I have to think of self as my enemy. Like, I have to think of the self as this thing that I've constructed with culture's help, with conformity's help,
Mhm.
with the help of many years of being indoctrinated by what culture puts at the beginning or at the head of what's important, what things we look to, we aspire to.
Mm.
And that's who that person is. And one of the things we do with self-care is that we indulge that person. That person does have weaknesses because that person's still in the physical being. So that person has weaknesses. That person gets tired. That person gets overwhelmed. That person gets overextended. And that person needs to recharge. Right? I'm not saying that there's something wrong in and of itself on its face with recharging, but what I am saying is that it's way easier to get tired when you're doing something that you weren't designed to do. If you watch the Olympics, if you put a sprinter in the distance competition, you're going to have some trouble. The sprinter has not been designed for that event, has not trained for that event.
Right. In the spirit of different words and different sentences that I've heard over time, with personal development, self-help, leadership, whatever, a bunch of words we want to put together, I always hear this sentence, and I'm not sure if it comes from the Bible or not. And I may have said it to you before, but the sentence is, service to many leads to greatness. And that sentence, I think I heard it the first time from Jim Rohn, someone that I love to listen to. He said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything you want. And I always kept that in my head, because does that have biblical roots? Is that from the Bible?
He could have biblical roots in it. I don't believe that in and of that itself,
but something
is in the
like
Bible,
that,
at least not in those words.
Not in those words, but something similar to that.
Right. Well, here's what I would say though, is that I think as an entrepreneur, you're always you're scanning the marketplace. You're okay, what does the market need?
Right.
Right. And it's not that it's untrue, that quote is untrue, that, when you help a lot of people, how does it go?
Service to many leads to greatness.
Leads to greatness.
And then the other sentence was, if you help enough people get what they want, you can get anything you want.
If you help enough, I got you. Yeah. And I've heard many of my mentors have said that.
Yeah.
But what I would say about that though, is that we often will look for the thing that other people need, shunning what it is that we were designed to do.
Okay.
Right. So it, again, in and of itself, it's not bad, but it's that if you are designed to if you're designed with an uncanny, like a supernatural amount of empathy, but you avoid relationships because you're afraid to get hurt. Now I know I'm getting a little more sort of ethereal in that conversation. We're not talking about, being a good sculptor or something.
Right.
But the reality is that we often will shovel dirt and bury the thing that we were put here to do. And rest assured, we may scan the marketplace to find out what people need. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. As an entrepreneur, I've had to do that many times. But what you have to remember is that they didn't build planes because we didn't need them. Design always follows purpose.
Right.
Like something gets made because there was a need for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I personally think, because I believe in God, I believe that, you were put here for a reason. You were put here, and you were put here to fill a place that was empty.
Right.
You were put here, and then they were like, okay, what are we going to do with this one?
I'm going to ask you 3 quick questions. They're all related to the same. Number 1, have you heard multiple people or a large group of people tell you what they think you're designed for? Number 2, do you know what you're designed for? And number 3, how does someone find out what they're designed for?
Okay, so let's take it one at a time. The first question was about other people
Have other people told you what you're designed to
and
do?
other people. Um, I think that other people can be sort of clues on the path of figuring out what you're here for.
Right.
Um, you know, it's not that we should not be paying attention to how people are responding to how we show up in life. It is that when that is the only metric that we use,
Right.
we get deceived into thinking that you know what I mean? So if we've talked about this, Chase.
Yeah.
Remember that there's a person that you and I know
Right.
who said, "Oh, no one's responding to my music,
Correct.
so I'm not going to do that anymore."
Correct.
Right? Well, I mean, what does that have to do with it?
It's nothing in my
It's not.
opinion.
It's not even relevant. It's
Right.
not even relevant. I mean, unless you're a multi-billion-dollar grossing artist on a contract who who has signed the dotted line and said, "I'm going to make this kind of music for this 7 years," whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's not even a conversation. But this is the metric that we use, right? So I do believe that I have met certain people who respond to certain things that I do in certain ways, but most of us are not really paying attention to that unless it's the crowd that's responding to us, unless it's a large number of people, because we think of success as large.
Yeah.
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 I mean, even when I've trained clients over the years, they don't losing 2 pounds when they've got 40 to go. It's like, well, to get to 40, you got to lose 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the second question?
Do you know what you're designed to do?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the third question?
Oh, do you want to tell us what you think you're designed to do? Or you want to come back to that?
We can come back to that. I kind of, I'm also, not that I need to be doing this, but I'm watching the time and I know I can talk long.
No problem. No problem. So the
Yeah.
third question is, what does someone do that doesn't know what they're designed to do? How do they find it? And by the way, what is it called? There's a thing you can do. I think it's called human design, and it comes from when you were born, where you were born, and it does all these coordinates. And it's called. And my friend Kathy did that for me, and some incredible things came out of that. But we can talk about that another time. Yeah. So how does someone know? How does someone get to that place?
I think that, and I can't take credit for this because I remember years ago, a coach of mine told me this. He said, most people don't ask themselves, what is it that you're always doing?
Right.
Like, what is it that you're always doing without without having to put it on the schedule? Without before you had a calendar, right? What was it that you were just always doing?
Right.
What were you just naturally always doing? You see animals learn sort of the what's a good example of this? They learn how to do things watching their parents.
Right.
Like they learn the mechanics of them or whatever. But the idea that they have to learn those things is sort of built into them. Like you don't see I think that human beings are an interesting case because we are navigating the economy of trade in a way that is about trade and acquisition rather than necessarily need. You know what I mean? So you've got supply and demand, and you've got these things that people want, but it's not necessarily that it's because they have a need for them. It's that we have all of this stuff to generate money. So we generate false need. And this is one of the things that you just have to go back to in the conversation about helping people. like when you help the most people, what are you helping them do? Right? Because I can make a product that everybody wants, and I can say that I've been useful to the marketplace because everyone bought it. Everyone loved it. But what did I really help them?
If that was your concentration, maybe you did help them. If maybe what you made helps them every day. If it's something from the kitchen,
Yeah,
something with like you could
sure.
have.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, you could have.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you have to ask the question.
Correct. This is such a stimulating conversation. I swear we could go another 45 minutes. I just want to make sure if anyone had any questions for Daniel as time is just swooped in on us once again. I want to make sure if anyone has anything to say, please just open up your mic and come on in. Anyone at all. Going once. Going twice.
Grand Rising.
Oh yeah, there she is. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to comment on when he said just now that the mutual friend that you guys have that said I'm not going to do music anymore because no one's investing or whatever.
Right.
I know as human beings, because like that happens. I mean, even with myself, and it's as simple as posting on Facebook because I'm the inspirational poster, right? I'm all about health and wellness and gratitude and positivity. And you like nobody interacts, but then you see a post with some bull crap. And
everybody's there.
Everybody. Yeah. And one time I out loud was frustrated because I'm like, I want people to get the message. Like these, are you seeing it? And I made a comment, and my son was like, "But just keep on doing what you do, because that's what you do." And I'm like, "You're right." And like the other day, I was in a room in Clubhouse, and they were talking about when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and for us to just continue doing what we're doing, because sometimes we don't even know who we're affected.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Some that don't comment on the page or on the post will inbox me. You know, people have a way of doing that. So I like that frame of thought. And and we just never know who we're impacting. And even if it's something that they want, I think sometimes they think they want it, but sometimes it's something that they need. And if we give them that thing, we are helping someone. And especially if we did that, if that was the intention within our soul. And
it's so true. A good friend of mine said, the haters are watching your pages more than you think. They're not going to reach out to you, but they're going to be watching you. And most people that are watching you will never tell you until you stop. And I was like, wow, until you stop. And it happened to me. Somebody said, wow, you haven't posted in a long time. And it's somebody I haven't spoken to in a year and a half. I was like, wow. So thank you for saying that. That's true. That's really true.
Yes. Thank you, Rashida.
That was Ingrid. Actually.
Or Ingrid, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want to make sure you know the peeps.
No, I narrowed my screen so the name flashed under real quick before she went off, and then
that's funny. All good. We family. This conversation is so engaging, and I just want to say from me to you, because I have the privilege of reading one of the first editions of your book. I know everyone on the call enjoys every time when you come on, because I've spoken to some people about it. And it's so good, bro. It's making me think about so many things. So I just want to say that out loud because it's great. It's really great.
I'm so glad to be helpful and be of service.
Oh my God, it's so great. I can't wait to get through the rest of it. I'm like over halfway through already. But
hey, Chase.
Yes.
I must ask you this question, Daniel. I'll first preface it with what I'm getting from this conversation. The question itself is really confronting. Am I using self-care to love myself or to hide that I don't? And what I'm getting from what you're saying is that perhaps the whole of self-care could be boiled down to me choosing always to do what's natural for me to do. And when I'm not doing what's natural for me to do, everything else I call self-care, I engage and bring in to compensate for the fact that I'm living an unnatural life.
Deep.
So that what I call self-care like massages and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is really could be evidence that I don't love myself. But I don't love myself is not necessarily the love that we're thinking about. It's more like I don't honor that which I was born to do, or that which naturally comes to me and enlivens me and leaves me lit up about life.
Yes. And
Every
I would
time I'm
say,
not doing
yeah,
it.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful the way you put that. I would say that we have to be just conscious about our words, because I have heard people say, it's natural to be angry and go off on somebody. So it's a natural response, right? To feel a certain thing and then to move out of that emotion. But I think the way you summed it up, I would 100% agree with. But it's just that I think we should be careful about what we put under the word natural. I think there are certain things that we say are natural that don't necessarily serve us either.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we just have to be discerning enough to know, or to be considering what those things are.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Daniel.
Wow.
One last question for you specifically, as you live your life as an author, father, a great cook, and all that. When do you find yourself using self-care to hide that you don't love yourself in that moment?
I think it's easier. God, it would be easier to talk about the times that you don't do that. I mean, I feel like it's so easy to, just to get on the hamster wheel, you know. I Jason and I were talking about that friend of ours who we mentioned briefly, and I sort of scoff at that a little bit, but also there's a part of it for me that, how, if you ever heard this conversation of the difference between a serial killer and a person who's in their car giving people the bird for cutting them off, and just how there's often just this barrier that keeps you from crossing that line. But it's not that you haven't had the same heart or the same mentality or found yourself in the same place in a moment that you didn't obey, right? That you didn't follow that moment to that action. And I think the thing about that friend of mine is that it hurts me because I've thought like that. Like, I've had those thoughts. I just haven't obeyed them. And I just think it's so tragic that, that particular person did for that time. So what I would say is, how do I know when I am doing the one and not the other? You didn't ask that question. That's sort of what you're asking.
Yeah.
And I always say is what I'm doing bringing life? Is it bringing life? Not just to me, but to others.
Yeah.
If I am constantly out, constantly miserable, constantly, there's a good chance that I wasn't meant to do it. If I have to have more skill all the time, if I have to have more education, there's a pretty good chance, it's not that those things are bad or wrong on the face. It's that if we make it about those things and they sit at the top of the pyramid of aspiration, then, and they aren't actually tools for what we are already made to do, to expand who we already are. They're just, exponents on top of ourselves. If you know the story of David and Goliath, I love that story, not just for the spiritual implications, but for the very real implications of who you are. David says to the armor bearer, to Saul, the king Saul, when he offers him his armor to go fight Goliath, he's like, I can't put these on. Like, I can't, he goes, I haven't proven these. And what I get from that story is David is saying, if I'm going to have any chance of winning this fight, I got to go out as who I am. I can't go out with your armor on and think I'm going to win. I'm not. I've never worn your armor. You know, I got to go out with my sling because that's what I do. And if I lose with the sling, then I was supposed to lose. But the best chance I've got is to go out as who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Daniel, for leaving me with the practice of seeing when self-care is self-loathing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sorrel. Thanks for engaging, man.
This is what we do. My goodness. My head is reeling. Anyway, my good people, it's that time again because it just is, right? It's just that time. Time has its way with us. If there is really a thing such as time, we have come to the end of it. And Daniel, thank you so much for being here. You know, I love you like my own skin, man. It's just amazing. I love talking to you.
Thank you, bro. You know, I love you too.
And I just, man, the people who make you think in your life are the gold mines. I truly believe that, you know. As always, we leave with our tenets because our tenets hopefully bring us into our day with a speaking of armor, a sort of armor that we can go out and kind of ascertain what's going on around us and feel what our real purpose is. And like we say, what we're designed to do. Please love more than you think you should. Please live higher in general. Just get more out of the life today, you know? Do something you've never done. Go somewhere you've never been. Move your body, right? Move intentionally. If you can, have a day or two of just plant-based eating. Just feel something different because we all know, or we should all know, that the thing that slows the body down the most is the fact that it has to digest. When the body doesn't have to digest, you feel lighter, even if it's for 1 day or 2 days. And then we go right back. We just throw all kinds of stuff in and we go, oh my gosh, what's going on? It's working. It's trying to get the stuff through that you threw in there, right? Sleep a little bit more than you do. If you're 5, 6, 7, go to 8 or 9. That's always pleasurable and great for the body. Also, laugh, you know? Daniel and I laugh all the time when we're talking because we're just real with each other. Even when Daniel says something that smacks me in the side of my neck like a wet towel, I'm like laughing and I'm just like, oh man, it's my brother right there. Gosh, there's so much wisdom. I love it. And stress less, my good people, because stress is, I believe, the root of almost all of the diseases that we have in the world right now. It's stress. Wow, it just really gets into us. We've all experienced it. Although no one can actually touch it, see it, or tell you what exactly it is, right? We use that word so fluidly. And of course, please check yourself before you wreck yourself. The assumptions that you have about your life, challenge them within yourself. Ask yourself, am I really feeling that? Do I really want to do that? Do I really want to say that? Do I really want to go there? Ask yourself the more questions. Thank you all for being with us today. I appreciate you so much. Daniel, I appreciate you. We're going to be talking as we always do, and have great fun in Portugal with your family. And my good people, have a spectacular day on purpose. Thank you so much. Peace.